Alan says, is there audio yet? Can you hear us, Alan?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Capital Factory and Video Game Makers Unite. So we're going to get rolling here in about 5 to 10 minutes with the presentation. Welcome. Seems like most of you guys already have it, but pizza over there, name tags over there if you want a name tag. Oh, yeah, I should probably start with that. My name is Raymond Stump. I'm a video game designer here in town. I worked on and continue to work on the MMO Crowfall, formerly Art and Craft Entertainment, now Monumental. Yeah, I've been here since 2017, been part of the scene, came to VGMU several times at this point. And yeah, the normal host, John Henderson, will be presenting today. So I am filling in as the host as much as I possibly can. Give me a hand, folks. Woo, I'm nervous.
Well, I don't have to. Go ahead.
So I'm going to jump right into it for the moment, and I'm going to go straight to the job havers and job have-nots. Is that fine? All right. And so we're just going to start with people who are looking for jobs right now. If you're looking for a job, raise your hand. We'll come around. We'll get some information from you. Tell us your name, what you're looking to do, and hopefully you guys can mingle with business cards and LinkedIn and stuff of that nature afterwards. So if you are looking for a job, go ahead and raise your hand. All right. Let's go one by one.
Prepare for judgment.
Oh, Lord. Hello.
Oh, this is out loud. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so go ahead, tell everybody your name, a little bit, something about yourself, what you're looking to do.
Okay. My name is Gray Huffines. I currently work as a mechanical engineer at Dell, so not exactly a game development status yet. I graduated a couple years ago from UT, and I worked on computer science while I was there. And I took a couple classes for game development. I got really interested in it, so I'm trying to transition away from my current engineering job. And currently, most of my experience is in Unity, mostly in 2D games and in 2D art for those games. So I'd be really willing to work on any project related to either of those. That's it.
Do you have business cards?
I do not. Because
Do you have a LinkedIn?
I do have a LinkedIn.
All right, so if anybody is looking for you or you want to interact with anybody, make sure share that information. It's really important in the community just to get yourself out there and get that information. I believe you had your hand up? Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Hey guys, I'm Colin Anderson. I just graduated from the Berklee College of Music about a month ago and just moved out here. So I do music and sound design for video games. I also tune pianos on the side. Just a little fun fact. And yeah, I do lots of different styles, mostly jazz, classical, rock, but kind of anything in between, even like metal, electronic music, anything. So, yeah, that's me.
All right. Where can people find you? Business cards, LinkedIn?
Yep, I've got some business cards on me on all the normal social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter,
Excellent.
LinkedIn.
Well, hey, thank you. All right. Who else had their hands up? All right. Here you go.
Hi, so my name's Emily, and I have been working on producing for film these past 2 months, but some legal troubles and other things, I got knocked off the project. So I am looking to dive back into the game world, where it's a little less cutthroat, and as like an associate producer or a narrative designer.
All right. Perfect. How can people find you?
Oh, LinkedIn, Emily Schroed, and I have business cards.
Ooh, excellent. All right. Anybody else looking for a job right now? Oh, we got some people streaming in. Hey, hey. Yes, it was. We're currently.
Downstairs at the first floor, looking at the giant robot head, wondering, how do I get inside?
We're kind of doing the part where we're asking who's looking for a job and who has jobs to offer. So if anybody else is looking for a job, just raise your hand, get your name, some information, and you get to kind of announce to everybody in the room what you do. All right. All right. Just your name, what you do, and then how people can find you.
Cool. My name, what I do. My name is Jamel Sashri. I am a musician, composer, all that. So I write music for the games. When it comes to specifically like just any kind of job, I don't really have like tech experience. So I'm kind of just floating around right now. So I'm looking for a job, maybe not specifically with like programming or things like that, but still in San Antonio. Yes. I'm from San Antonio. I live in San Antonio. I just wanted to come meet a whole bunch of really cool people. So that's why I'm here. If you want to find me, I'm on Instagram at Jamel Music. That's JAMAIL Music. What else should I say? I don't know. I do not have business cards on me already. Yeah, I have to update it and make some more. But yeah. But yeah, I'm mostly just a musician, and I write music. I perform a lot. Trumpet, bass guitar, piano, sing, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But those are the things I'm the most proficient at. Yeah. Yeah, actually. But yeah, I guess that's it. Nice to meet all y'all, and nice to see you in person. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right. As the people kind of streamed in, anybody else looking for jobs, just raise your hand. Ooh, love the shirt. Love the shirt.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Tyson. I am also a composer. I compose music. I'm a freelance composer, so I guess I wouldn't say I'm looking for a traditional job so much as working with game creators. I primarily write music for single-player, story-driven action games, and what else to say? I'm a Leo. Oh, I'm a Leo. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Cool. I have some business cards in my wallet, I believe, and I'm going to write my last name on here. My email address is just my first and last is Tyson Kazair Music. It's my last name is spelled like crazier, but without the first R. So
Only
instead
one
of
R.
CRAZIER, it's CAZIER. So it's TysonKazairMusic.com is a way to get a hold of me, or just on Instagram, Tyson Kazair Music as well, are ways to get a hold of me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Any more people looking for jobs? All right. We got a lot today. Love it.
Hey, I'm Jake, and I'm like a recent graduate from Austin Community College and got I'd like to be an entry-level programmer, ideally, but I do level design or something entry-level design as well. And I'm working with my team from ACC, still making games, making game jam games, building up a portfolio. And you could just talk to me. I don't have business cards on me again, sorry. But I can give you my LinkedIn info if you're looking for a programmer or something.
All right.
And that's it.
Is it just kind of an old-fashioned thing, business cards? Because I know not everyone likes it because LinkedIn makes it so simple. But honestly, I'm old, so I have business cards. And also, I want to plug moo.com, M-O-O, like cow says moo. Very simple. You can design your own cards and get big gobs of them sent to your place. So that's one option. Or you can go to Office Max and get a big ream of card stock and just print it yourself and cut it yourself. That's how I made my cards. So.
Absolutely. All right. Anybody else looking for a job? Going one more. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, why not?
He'll get a shout out later, but Aaron Brown and the Austin Game Audio Meetup is part of the reason why we have so many audio people here today. They're actually that's a legit Discord channel. He doesn't advertise it to everyone, and actually he's been in the news lately because he just took over as the audio lead at Arcane to get Redfall out the door. So yeah, Aaron Brown, good guy.
Nice. Well, thank you guys all for sharing. It's really hard to sometimes put yourself out there, and it's hard to talk to people. I don't always like talking to people, so every single day you get out there, talk to people, and try to just, get into the industry is always a good day. So now let's talk about who has jobs to offer. If you have any jobs and you're looking for them to be filled, raise your hand. Anybody hiring?
You don't always get one. Usually, if Gordon was here, he'd probably raise his hand. But
Well, yeah, I was going to wait till the end. But I work for a company called Monumental. I would just go to their website or talk to me afterwards if you're interested in any of the positions that are up there. We're actively hiring, and we're going to continue to actively hire for the next couple months. So Monumental dot something. Just type in Monumental Games into Google. You'll find it.
they're actually local, folks.
Professional up here. But any hires? All right. Well, our speaker tonight, jump right into it.
Sure, why not?
All right, John Henderson, historically, yeah, let's clap. Woo! John has been the host of this event. I'm helping him out tonight. John Henderson has been a staple in Austin since 2008. I consider him the video game history guru. Anytime you have any type of information or you need to know something, John seems to know a ton. And so he's got a wonderful talk today, and I'm just going to let him take it away from here.
Thank you, folks. All right. Well, thanks, everyone, for coming tonight. Of all the things you could be doing on a Thursday night, you've chosen to spend it with us. I do want to thank Gordon Walton. He got a new job and promptly went on vacation, but he's enabling us to spend his money on pizza and beer. That's what he's been doing, but he's absent, but it's excellent to have him here. But and Richard is our barman for the past year, I believe, now. Very cheerful at that. And give another hand to all these people, including Raymond, for being the host, so I didn't have to. But thank you, everyone. And this is what you came here for tonight. Does this actually work? Oh, really? We'll start at the beginning. My name is John Henderson, and I am an amateur community organizer. See, good, that works. You're now my enablers, which is one level or beyond a mere audience. And just because people get hung up on the word, the reason I say amateur is that I don't do this for money. This is going to come up later, but there's going to be 3 different parts to my talk. I'm going to be talking about myself to begin with, my connection to all this, and I'll be giving some history, as Raymond says I'm good at, on the subject, and finally explaining the state of things, which is what I really want to talk about, life, the universe, and everything about making and selling video games in Austin, and what I think the ends are about. There's more than one of them. This could get a little dark. Hopefully not a total bummer, but someone with the right ears might see a solution the problems I'm illustrating and the lessons I'm offering. I'm going to try hard not to sound bitter or jaded or complaining for its own sake, and of course every ending can have a new beginning. Mostly this is going to be me talking really fast as I read notes. Please believe the only reason I'm saying any of this is that I don't think it's being said by enough of the people as often or as loud. This bothers me. Maybe someone else can say it better than I will, but for what I want to say, make no mistake, this is a warning. This is something I know. Video game development as a hobby or otherwise is very strongly based on trust and reputation. There are lots of people fascinated by video games, so many that you won't ever run out of them, but there were people around who had been working in the space since before the mid-1990s, when video games generally stopped being a niche market into a mainstream international pastime. And yet, what had already happened in that time for books and music and film and animation, comic books, and every other kind of mainstream entertainment, it wasn't happening, or at least wasn't happening fast enough for video games. People who had been fascinated by video games because they play video games came to the conclusion, and in some cases were being told and marketed to, and you probably know some of the marketing I'm talking about, if they loved playing games, then they should necessarily be good at making them. What I learned very early on is that this was a pervasive, reprehensible lie. What I also learned is that this lie created a schism between those who are already in the business and those who purportedly wanted to enter it, the job haves and the job have-nots. We've heard that before. We still have both groups, and we still have the schism. It meant that those who were already working became highly suspicious of, and in some cases derisively fearful of, anyone out under the age of 30 who claimed to want to, quote, get into video games, end quote. Out of this very schism came an equally distrustful and scornful term for those looking to break in: students. So anyone who hears that word or applies it to themselves, be aware of its connotation. I'll bring that up again later too. The most awkward question I get asked all the time for myself is who do I work for? And work did bring me here to Austin, and I did work for a video game publisher for 7 years between 2008 and 2015. But in between and since, I've become notorious for the things I've done for this weird hobby of mine. That includes being a chapter officer for IGDA in Austin, back when that was a thing. Host for a game developer beer night. Some of you have been to those. And since the 2 guys who started that moved out of town, they bequeathed it to me, and I've co-host for this fine series of Capital Factory. And by the way, I forgot to thank them, but thank them for providing the space for us to use, as well as the free AV. Truth is, I haven't taken my professional career all that seriously, and while that's meant I got to do some pretty remarkable things that no one should ever expect to get to do, I'm currently adrift. I do have a full-time job, and I'm probably get better benefits than a lot of my friends working in video games, but my advancement isn't clear, and I'm entering kind of midlife crisis where I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. But if you're really curious, you can find my LinkedIn. It's public, and I'm not a game developer. I'll probably never get to be a game developer. That means something important. I have free time. What I'd happened into by coming to and eventually moving to Austin through other related functions where volunteers were needed was a mechanism by which those metaphorically pressing their faces to the glass of an invisible, intangible candy shop of the video game business could be given something to do, and in some cases organized with no small amount of skill. Shy people could become socialized. Talented people could prove that they could be trusted with a task, and by contrast, hopeless jerks could be gently told to find something else to do. Finally, everyone who found themselves in Austin could find another reason to be glad they're here as opposed to somewhere else. It was imperfect, but there was a system. It had limited reach, but it mattered to those who were able to take part. And now, largely, for most of Austin, it's all gone. We'll come back to that too. So I'm not saying any of this to apply for a job or make anyone's problem of my own. Since I did come to Austin in 2008, the work I do for money has enabled me to do work that I like to do, even if it doesn't earn. The fact that I am not a game developer and not currently working in a position relative to same is both absurd in my mind And it makes total sense. Game developers are busy people who don't have the control over their own time that I have and don't have the energy to focus on anything outside of their own project and maybe getting enough sleep. By enabling devs to socialize, meet each other, and stay informed about what's going on outside of their own projects, I'm adding value. At least I think so. So this talk has been rattling around in my head for a long time. It was originally going to start the year. If you pay attention to our meetups and our scheduling, I was going to do this in February, and then we had the Omicron spike, and I didn't feel right about scheduling something, especially not my own talk, when we're all huddling indoors hoping not to get sick. But the rescheduling till now didn't change much about how I'm presenting this talk, but other things did. And this is the good news, because good things started happening again in Austin. South by Southwest came back in March, and with it a few events run by friends of mine. Tyler's one of them. We had a portfolio posse at St. Edward's University, first one I'd been involved with since before the pandemic. They asked me to help do it, and it went off well. And thing about portfolio posse, and yeah, we're in Texas, so we can do cowboy stuff all day. Years and years ago, Austin used to have an active ACM SIGGRAPH chapter. The portfolio review sessions, that's what they called it. They call it the portfolio posse. So I just got to use their name, and they're not around anymore, so they can't tell me I can't. It's not an original idea, portfolio reviews in person, but it was that chapter that gave the name. Years after the chapter folded, I started doing them at various locations around Austin just because I saw the need for it. And there were experienced pros I could call on for reviewers. One time I did it at Schultz Garden. Never been in that place. And then in late 2017, I found myself working for a private school. You guys want to hear this stuff? I got a story. I could just keep going on, but I mean, all this is, and anyone that's talked to me, this really is how I talk. You know, I just sub-reference left and right. I was working at a private school just located west of UT Office's campus, and they wanted to have a finishing school for video game development. So they had space for events, so we hosted the Global Game Jam there for a few years, and then we had the Portfolio Posse there as a quarterly event. And then I called on my friends who are professors at St. Edward's to be reviewers, Bob and Jeremy, and kind of hoped that Bob would be here. But anyway, Bob, if you're watching. Then last winter, they asked me again to do it at their campus. And some of the reviewers that I brought there had never been on that campus before. And that school that I worked to, that like just west of the campus, that was the Hoft Institute's Game Design and Development Lab. The last cohort that we graduated, they won Best Student Game at the International Game Festival in 2021, a whole year after the program sunset. So it was nice to be part of that. So, like I said, I can run my mouth, but I genuinely am proud of having been associated with some things. But some things about that. I don't like doing anything alone, hence why I've brought people here to help me out. I admit I like being thought of as a big shot. It's kind of the thing, who can get things done, even if that's not really the truth. Someone else or others help keep my ego in check and enable what I want to do by providing their time and resources. And I like to think that I'm appreciative of that. If things work the way they should, the enabling can be mutual. We enable each other. I like to choose who I work with. This is a luxury for those in a workplace where they don't always get to choose. If I don't know or trust you implicitly, I don't want to spend my free time in gambling the success of everything that we do together on inadequate trust. Related to that, I don't have a lot of money and I try not to spend it, and I generally dislike charging admission. As a general rule, I don't want money to be a factor in keeping people out of the experience, even though I have to admit from that experience that some skin in the game can be the difference between participation and the excuse to blow the whole thing off. It's a thin line to walk, but I think it demarcates what a worthwhile pastime that brings me joy, and on the other side of it, what's a job that I need to do for money. And I don't like being at cross purposes. If there's anything that's already being done that's remotely at all like what I want to do, I don't want to compete with it. Most anything I'm involved with started with the acknowledgement that whatever needs to be done, it isn't happening. So I want to be involved in making it happen. So that's the good news. And the continued good news is you have not seen the end of me. As of right now, I'm enjoying myself. I have the means to stay in Austin. And as anyone who lives here can tell you, however, that can all change in a moment. And we're all holding on together. Some things I believe, these are guiding principles for everything I do. I won't be giving a way of supporting facts for why I think this, but if you really want to know why I believe these things, you can ask me later. Take notes. Just stated as a postulate, it matters where video games are made. I did a whole talk about this for Nerd Night, a different show, back in 2015. You can look up on Vimeo. Just put my name in there. It was called a non-exhaustive list of references to Austin made in commercial video games, or maybe just Austin in the game. I forget. Anyway, got a lot of laughs for that one. Game development is a craft born of dissatisfaction. This may explain a lot of the mentality amongst game developers. I can elaborate on that later too. Game developers are human, but they're disincentivized from addressing their own humanity. And game development is and has been part of what Austin is, though for a lot of that time it was treated as a secret. And finally, Austin as a place should be celebrated, and the people in that space and what they do should also be. One more thing about me, I do things generally for two reasons. They're fun, and they make me money. One of the two, usually not the same thing. I say this because, as I said, most of the stuff I'm known for has not been part of my paying job, even if the stuff I did for money enabled the hobby stuff. I haven't always done a great job of drawing that line, nor have I done a great job of explaining what I consider fun. I'll illustrate this by pointing out one thing I just can't do for free anymore, and that's no more free referrals for jobs. A lot of my friends who are hiring will ask me for help with this, and the conversation will start, hey, John, do you know someone who can do such and such? And it's a reasonable question, but it's why it comes awkward when I have to say I'd like to help, but I can't do this for free anymore. The reason I'm not doing it for free anymore, well, there are two reasons. One, even if I do know someone at any given moment who could do a job, keeping track of those people and whether they found another job somewhere else, that's a job. Again, don't want to do it for free. And further, I don't like dropping people's names or contact information unless I know I have their permission to do so in the context of looking for work. Moment to moment, again, hard to keep track of. So the second reason, this may be a revelation to some people. There aren't enough experienced game developers alive to do all the jobs announced, to say nothing of the jobs that aren't announced yet. And this is something I can't prove to be true. I can't even be sure how long it's been true, but I'm asking you all to keep it as a given. However, it's not limited to Austin, but it's absolutely the case right now here. It's not limited to game development either, and I believe it's going to be the guiding principle for Central Texas in the next decade as technology and research continue to grow as local industries with and without video games as products. Again, a lot of this is going to be awkward because my observations tend me to lead me to believe this. However, every time I get asked about a referral by a well-meaning friend, I wonder, do they know how hard it is to do recruiting for everyone, that it takes time and money, that this is a conversation I mostly avoid having, but it comes to me anyway, especially when I bring up how I want to be paid, but that's usually where the conversation ends. But if I'm being totally honest, I do end up making some connections anyway, because I do want to see people succeed. So even if I don't get a piece of the action, because I just can't help myself. Here's the bad news. We've already had some devastating events in the greater Austin area. Some seem long ago, while some are more recent. As we look forward to the very possible end of the international pandemic, and by the way, everyone who came here, thank you for being brave. I mean, some of you are still wearing your masks, but you know, hopefully we're trusting each other on that. But at the same time, I don't know where y'all have been, but hopefully we can all leave here and be perfectly healthy a week later. I'm giving this perspective. I'm going to give some disasters that didn't cause death, but they were nonetheless life-changing. So you remember the start of the year, there was that gimmick on social media where people were reminding themselves, Dustin was pointing out how it may have been a gimmick to steal people's identity or their photos so they could give away what they looked like 10 years ago as opposed to what they were doing 10 years ago. But there are other people who are just saying, this is what I did 10 years ago. And I noticed that, and I realized, well, this is kind of relevant to what I want to talk about. This happened about 10 years ago. It's more like 9.5. This was a show I got together with Austin PBS KLRU, and I had a speaker roundtable with representatives from 5 studios that had released new games in the previous year, 2012. You know, like the Mayans, got my crying Mayan there. The end of the calendar. It wasn't the end of the world. That's why it's called Not the End of the World. We played up that whole idea that 2012 was supposed to have been the year when everything ended. I got Paul Russell, if you know who Paul Russell is, to design the trade dress. J.J. Weber from KLRU was the producer for me, and we had it at Studio 6A where they used to shoot Austin City Limits. That was the stage where Roy Orbison and Dolly Parton and Willie Nelson used to play. Jennifer Bullard, another good friend, I want to drop her name. She moderated for me on basically no notice because I realized we needed a moderator and I didn't want to do it. We drew a big crowd, packed the house. A lot of people helped me make that show happen. And it's still on YouTube. If anyone want to look it up, it's on Austin PBS, and they made a playlist for it. So I did a talk later that year where I acknowledged that within weeks of us doing that show, well, it was really just about how everything was supposedly like we're putting the bad stuff behind us. But, you know, what happened almost immediately after is that THQ went bankrupt and Disney shut down Junction Point. That happened the same month in January 2013. That was probably the last really big deal, catastrophic closure period in Austin, and it happened almost 10 years ago. So, I mean, we've had studio closures and layoffs before then and since, but again, there's like 300 jobs lost suddenly, and it wasn't like there was someone else to just pick them up and just hire them again. But what's happened since then? More than once, some company without a presence in Austin will just swoop in and pick up that team after a layoff. And if that didn't happen, anyone who wanted a new job found one within a few weeks. That's been the story for the past 9 years here in Austin. Increasingly, developers found new jobs at studios remote to Austin. Like they stayed here, but they work for someone else because they have a computer and internet, and it's not required for them to be in office. And I'm not saying this like I'm saying this is anyone's fault, or I'm passing judgment on who's handling the current situation better than others, because not everyone's laying off people and not everyone's project's closed, but it happens. The names I'm dropping aren't meant as blame to those companies or individuals involved. Everyone manages their own businesses with the resources they have at hand. However, I'm going to argue that everything that exists in between private interests, everything without the established companies and their projects, has not benefited the same. But so back to 2013, those of us trying to make the community as a whole better, there was a lot of us, we couldn't have known how much worse it was going to get. So here's my evidence. We had other plans for 2013. The IGDA chapter, I was still involved with it at the time. We were planning on the 7th annual summer picnic. Who here has heard about the summer picnic at Richard Garriott's house? People don't even remember this happened. This was a thing. Richard Garriott has this big property out on Lake Austin. And this was going to be the 7th one we did. So it grew out of when people used to work for Origin Systems, and Richard would have parties for the employees out there. And at its peak, the summer picnic, we had like 600 to 850 people out on this property for, you know, in the afternoon into the late evening. It was a massive volunteer operation with barbecue, live performances, face paintings, petting zoos, bring your kids, family-friendly entertainment. Lots of people, you know, within and without the industry showed up. It took a platoon of volunteers just to park the cars. And we were planning on doing this. This is the poster we had made for it. And then it didn't happen. And so the last time we did the summer picnic was actually 2012. It hasn't happened since. We haven't had anything like that since we were doing it. And the reason why it didn't happen in 2013 weren't up to me, but I don't want to dwell on it or put words in other people's mouths, but we'll say there was a miscommunication that led to a sudden decision. So, reason I bring this up, it's one of the missing pieces, things that we used to have here in Austin that we just don't. You know, Austin used to be known for more than just the employing companies that created jobs. And so these are the things besides those. I have to drop names on some of this stuff. These are organizations and events working to create regular opportunities for game developers to come together in Austin. Big events, large venues, admission, full service. Lots of people outside the circle of game development were made welcome to come inside. Like I said, the IGD Austin chapter. I also did a Microtalk show on the regular, and those are all on YouTube. People can still watch them. I mentioned the SIGGRAPH chapter before. Ayuga, the Autodesk Animation User Group. I don't talk to the people right now. I don't know what's going to happen to it, whether it's going to come back. PAX South, if anyone went to that in San Antonio, if anyone didn't know the story about that, Reed Pop, they took an enormous bath during the pandemic, and they're having PAX West and East, but PAX South is apparently not coming back. South by Southwest Gaming. South by came back this year, barely. They took Jay Penske's money to keep the doors open, cut their staff down to a minimum, and they didn't have gaming, and maybe it'll come back in the future, but they just couldn't get it done this time. There was an Austin Game Conference. How many people knew that happened? AGC, and it got bought by GDC and rebranded as GDC Texas, and then or GDC Austin, and then GDC Online, and then they decided they really wanted to do one in LA. They called it GDC Next, and no one could tell me what that meant, but then they closed that one. North Austin Game Night, our friend Dan Reese was doing that on the regular. I don't know when it's going to come back. There was trouble with the venue. Maybe he'll bring that. That was a showcase of people's locally made games, and they would also have like Smash Brothers tournaments. It was a great way to people coming together. Again, maybe you haven't even heard of this stuff happening, but some of it was not that long ago, and but a lot of them were kind of on their way out. And other than a few that I pointed out, the pandemic didn't kill these things. So what we still have RTX, which is coming up next month. It's Rooster Teeth's show. It'll be at the Convention Center. It's primarily for them and their fans, and they're showcasing the stuff. And we have ATX Game Makers, our friend Donald Harris's project. I very much appreciate, wish all the best for, helping him populate his calendar of events, atxgamemakers.com. We have Fantastic Arcade, now run by the Museum of Human Achievement, and they have Games Y'all, which is happening tonight. And I'm sorry about that, but that's their choice to have it the same night my event. But it's BRAC as a monthly show. And we also have Game Worlds Camp, our friend Alicia Andrews, summer camp, which is a weekly event for, it's a summer camp for kids age 11 to 18. And if they've never touched a game making tool in their lives, by the end of the week, they're making a game, and they always want experts and people to come in and judge them, and the kids come out as a team and present, and they're real serious about it, and it's very cute. Classic Game Fest also happening next month, run by Game Over Video Games. That's at the Palmer Center. And like I said, Aaron Brown's Austin Game Audio Meetup in the school programs, UT Austin, St. Edward's University, ACC. And we have what I'm doing and what Gordon Walton wants to do. And not a lot else, at least not that I know of. Maybe it's happening. Maybe it'll be coming. I can't keep track of everything. We could do better. I want to believe that. But that world of 10 years ago is over. And if we want it back, that world has to come back, or something else has to replace it. So this is where I'm bringing it all home. This is the big part. I've got a postulate to make, but in case you hadn't noticed, Austin is becoming difficult to live in lately. Here's some reasons. Cost of living is rising, housing in particular. The infrastructure is still kind of crappy, and this is Texas, so, there's a tradition of people driving 150 miles to a high school football game. Everyone's got a car, so you still kind of need access to a car to get around, but that's not true in a lot of major cities, and we still only have one train line. At least there's plans, but it won't be here for at least another 3 years. And that also includes the power grid. What was everyone doing that third week of February 2021? I'll tell you what I was doing, sleeping on someone's couch for 3 days. I woke up the first morning with a kidney stone, and I had to go to a AR because it was the only thing open, and I'll be paying that for the end of the year. But, I owed it to the people I was staying with to find out why I was moaning and groaning and puking on their floor. They didn't know if it was COVID. Turns out that's not a symptom of COVID. It's a kidney stone. Decline of the counterculture. Once upon a time, there were a whole bunch of flea trap apartments within walking distance of downtown. That's kind of what you need is cheap living expenses. It's related to the cost of living. Obnoxious politics. And if people want to ask me that in QA, I'll give examples, but I'll move on. Tree pollen and mold. This is honestly something that ought to be explained to people who are planning on moving here. You know, I'm lucky that one Claritin a day still works for me, but that's not true of everyone. And if it doesn't affect you yet, it will. It's just going to wear you down. Student loans is not specific to Austin or Texas, but it's a factor in many people's lives. This is a college town, but a lot of people get sold on certain unnamed private technical and creative arts schools because they want to learn how to get into video games, and maybe that will work, and maybe you'll be in Hawk for the rest of your life. I'm not putting these out there because I just want to denigrate Austin or dump on anyone, but I want to point them out because, again, these things don't get discussed. Most of these things have been present or have been developing for a long while, and for a lot of people, including those pursuing jobs in creative and or technical industries like video games, Austin still beats a lot of other places where they could live or where they came from. At least it's been like that until recently, and it might be tipping in the other direction. But there are people who come to Austin, often straight out of college, to seek their fortunes in game developers, like it's Hollywood in the 50s. And I know that because they end up coming to my events, and I end up meeting them. And it's fine. I like talking to them. It's interesting to me. Some of them might be watching this video on YouTube. You know, if that's you, you know, for the future, here's my advice. Come visit first. You know, don't make plans on, you know, signing a lease before you make contacts here first. It does matter. You know, someone who already knows who you are, you know, and is already here, you want that contact before you know, make a commitment. I wish I didn't have to point that out, but let's revisit this slide I brought up earlier. There's just not enough people to do this work, and to fill all the specialized jobs advertised is, you know, anyway, just think about this. Take a minute. I can't tell you why this is, or if it's because there's so many fully funded projects like there hadn't been in a long time. We have a lot more risk-seeking investors. And that kind of, you know, if Gordon was here, he'd probably be looking at me strangely because honestly, people that have been around as long as he has, it's weird. People don't know what to make of it. People don't know how long it's going to last or what the end of it. Or, you know, like I said before, like not many studios are closing. Or if the laid off talent, they can get a new job right away. Again, not a typical thing to have happen very often, but it's just hard to find a new project or new studio opening that isn't announced that doesn't immediately follow with a long list of open jobs. Like they don't have all the people, and they know they're going to need to hire more, so they announce their project, and then they say, we're hiring like crazy. But because this is true, there aren't studios or projects closing fast enough. What's happening instead is studios are acquiring talent by direct purchase. It used to be that dev studios were purchased because of intellectual property they own or technology they invented, and now studios that start out with a co-development contract get acquired after the project shipped. That's happened in Austin twice in the past 2 years. Look it up. Again, I don't want to name too many names because it sounds like I'm blaming people for it. But you know, what happens if acquisition isn't an option and you still need people? So the other thing that's happening is that teams are poaching talent. And I want to go on the record that I'm not against this, especially if it means a team from a studio that's on a downturn or some business has to be done. They get to stay together, just maybe move on a new project, or the project gets owned by someone else. I just have less of a problem with that happening if it wasn't zero sum. And what was that? Yeah, this is a side note, but I do have to drop a name because, again, I looked at Twitter and I see things like this. This is a studio you might have heard of. They're based in Seattle. They were founded in Chicago. They recently announced plans to be acquired by Sony. They used to be owned by Microsoft. they've never had a game development office in Texas, at least not one they controlled directly. And they put this map out on their Twitter account advertising you can live in any of these American states and work for them remotely. The message is clear. Bungie needs help and isn't going to make people move to Seattle if they don't want to go. And the interesting thing about that is, by the time I got around to finishing slides for this talk, one of the leads at Bungie posted a new map with a bunch more states. This map hasn't appeared on the Bungie Careers Twitter account. I don't know why, but I want to point out this title screenshot over here. That's from their Bungie Careers webpage, and that section called Incubation. So I remember talking, again, years ago about Austin building a job incubator for game development talent and enterprise. It was going to be, independent of any particular studio, and anyone could use it, but I remember it never got off the ground because making money to fund it was just too hard. I remember at least one really old game studio in Austin used to call its own in-house incubation system its university, because it recognized, again, this was like back in the 80s, its staffing needs were just too great to rely on outside factors. And now it seems like some studios, and it's not just Bungie, if they have deep enough pockets of notoriety, they see incubation as a means to solve the problem about, where to find people. So is anyone doing this in Austin? Or are most studios just content to wait for Bungie to build them up and then lay them off? And if not Bungie, Riot or Blizzard or some other big studio that might be a little bit better at on-ramping people. Are we just content with that? Just asking. But here's another way to look at the problem that might be revelatory to some. There are not any idle groups of experienced game developers. At least there's no one waiting around for someone to tell them what to do. At least not anyone with any proven ability to do anything. And I say this because I'm still finding people who want game developers. They get fascinated by video games. They see video game creation as a solution. And they're like, where do I find some game devs? They're all working. They have stuff to do, and they'll ask me. And again, I'm not doing that for free anymore. But there's an important word in there. No, it's bolded. Yeah. I fully expect this to blow some minds at Capital Factory, because there are people here who are doing all kinds of technology enterprise. I don't think any of them are here. I think they're not of this crowd necessarily, but they would be welcome if they were. I'm not denigrating them, but based on conversations I've had in this building, they don't understand the notion of experience, or that it's kind of a catch-22 by design. But again, just about every hiring agency or specialty lead has a near total lack of tolerance for any deficiency in experience. Again, they'll tell you this. If you don't have experience, you got nowhere. Game production environment is thought to be so alien that the only way to handle it is to be immersed in it for X number of years. And during those X years, you don't get fired. And that's a tip for everyone looking for jobs. When you see a job listing saying you need X number of years and whatever, that's really an imperfect metric meant to address a legitimate concern on the part of a company. No one wants to be anyone's first employer. If you've worked for someone else and you didn't screw up so bad they had to can you, that's value. But everyone's got a different story about how they got their first job, and that's the hardest one to get. The most consistent way to break the experience cycle in most every story I've heard is to find someone willing to give an inexperienced talent a shot to take them under a wing, formally or otherwise, and sometimes that's not within the scope of a job. And then that someone, you might call them a mentor, will take a gamble on whatever vague impression they get, except that's dependent on inexperienced talents finding that someone who will give them that time and good advice. And the mentor rightly should want to help whoever the mentee is, but for how long? Based on what? The mentee's personality, their ambition, their ability to showcase their own talent. And I've seen professionals float the idea of offering mentorship for a fee, and I have to admit the only reason I don't like that is that there's no more guarantee that it'll lead to creating experience. And they can't promise that. And meanwhile, you can't teach experience, but schools are still thought of as a solution, even when schools, and I'm talking colleges and universities, they're not equipped to facilitate professional connections and curricula can't be adapted fast enough to address the latest technology or techniques that will get anyone that first job consistently. Whatever my well-meaning friends in academia or in pro game development positions get asked what students, there's that word again, what they ought to do, they usually bring up going to some big game conference or look for volunteers opportunities or an IGDA chapter. Remember when I talked about that not happening in Austin anymore? So never mind that. It's mostly gone here in Austin. Where is someone supposed to go to find out what they want to know and what they need to find a job in the field? Think about all the work from home we've been doing during the pandemic. There are people who have come to Austin in the past 2 years for work that haven't even met their coworkers because everyone's at home talking through Zoom. In my mind, that means the game dev events are more important than they've ever been, just to facilitate any human contact at all. So, is this making sense yet? I mean, I'm going lots of play. I'm going round and round. So hopefully this is, you'll have questions later. There've always been cracks in this unplanned system. They've grown too wide to hold a talent pool. Your pool is leaking. It's the summertime. You ought to take care of that. So if we're being thorough, let's talk about the two big cracks, two big gaps relevant to professional game development. There's actually two of them. I've been talking about one, or been implying the first. It's at the start between the adept enthusiast and that first bottom rung job. And then the next one is between the junior and the senior. Both are all but unaccounted for in this field. Some studios are better at addressing them than others. Many more studios hold on to the misguided notion that all the talent they will ever need will come from somewhere else. And if they need people in charge of anything, they're always better off hiring from outside as opposed to promoting from within. Some are bold enough to demand only the best of the best and even say so much as no juniors allowed. I'm saying all this, but I'm not actually trying to pick a fight with anyone. If they're running a studio or managing a team or project and I'm not trying to tell you how to run your business or place blame for the current state of the town environment. I'm only here to suggest that whatever's being done by anyone is not enough. There are opportunities here in Austin to improve the overall climate of work and living that could benefit everyone. The studios or the places those studios operate in could foster solutions to navigate those gaps and maybe close them. We could do it here. What I want to know in so many words is if being here in Austin still means anything, and if it does, what does that mean? I don't want Austin to just be a place where people pass through on their way to the job they really wanted, located somewhere else, and that's what I see it becoming right now. Because, I mean, we like to complain about the Californians, like it's their fault, and damn Californians coming here and making the place there. That's not true. People come here, but most of the people coming from Austin, they're coming from somewhere else in Texas. There are still people who will look at a map of America. I've known people that have told me this. They'll make a judgment. They'll look at where they could go to seek their fortune, where they want to plant their flag. Austin has the most number of studios located in one place, the most varied history, and the most opportunity. And I wish everyone who was already here thought the same way about this stuff, but there's no structure in place, no funnel, no welcome mat. And yet people like that come. Again, they sign that apartment lease without anyone knowing from Adam. They move all their stuff here because they're sure they're just sure people want them here. I mean, I have to admire their optimism, but I often wonder where it's from. But can you imagine what it would be like if there was such a thing to onboard newcomers to Austin? Like an ongoing resource that could cater to everyone interested in video game development in the greater Austin area, independent of any single studio? I'm kidding. I'm not proposing that. I'm not proposing anything in particular that should be done. We've never had anything like that. But think about that list I had earlier. Remember this one? You know, how many people, it didn't seem like most of you knew about any of this was happening, or that did happen or are happening now. You know, that other list I had, the stuff that we still have. I want people to know about these things. I want people to get excited about them. I want people to care because that's what I want Austin to be about. That's what I think Austin could be about. People who care. But what we still don't have, these things will be nice. Again, not a proposition, just ideas about regular events where alcohol isn't served. You know, some people rightly don't feel comfortable. Yeah, I won't ask you for that one, but we still love you, Richard. Some people rightly don't feel comfortable around people who are drinking, but bars are often the most convenient way to bring people together, and they have space, and they're selling food and drink. Options to learn new skills, continuing education style that anyone can use regardless of workplace. Studios that are looking to fill positions with very specific skills could do very well to offer in-person how-to sessions. Like, we want someone who can do this. We'll teach you how to do this. We won't promise you a job, but you can come learn. No one does that. You know, if someone wanted to do that, that'd be better than Portfolio Posse. Come on, show me up, someone. How about affordable cooperative work and showcase spaces for all the things that, you know, don't make money, formal and otherwise. Like Glitch City in LA or Indie City. And yes, I'm aware Indie City isn't around anymore, but it was good while it lasted. An available event space of varying sizes. You know, all the studios in town with that unused office space because everyone's working from home. Think about it. Call me. So, recapping. So, people interested in game industry jobs keep coming to Austin regardless of what's going on. Austin used to have a lot more events and structures that would bring people together and offer connection points. Remote work has already leveled the playing field for talent and salaries. Nobody seems to have any clear idea where talent comes from. Recruiting efforts seem to be mostly about waiting for other enterprise or projects to fail or poaching from other studios. Austin could use more efforts based around growing and retaining talent for both commercial and non-commercial purposes if it's going to continue operating at its current level. At risk is that game development as a commercial or non-commercial venture in Austin will go into decline regardless of past glories or continued opportunity. And I don't have any expectations that any of this is going to happen just because I said so. Austin is still a special place. And I believe for the sake of those who are here, who have been here and who have yet to come, it deserves a better framework of efforts to improve life here, specific to those who want to spend time here making and publish video games. And I want to encourage anyone who agrees with me to pursue any efforts to create such a framework for the sake of Austin continuing to be thought of as a special place where games get made. Because if we don't, Austin may as well be anywhere else or nowhere. No place. And what's to become of us? That's the warning. Thank you.
Alrighty, everybody. Thank you, John. Really appreciate the talk. Really well done. Oh, yes, I do. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. And thank you, everybody. We're going to take a 10-minute break, use the restroom, mingle about each other. More pizza, more drink if you want drink, you know. So enjoy. And we'll be back in 10 minutes for questions and chit-chatting with the speaker, John. All righty, everybody. So we're going to move into just questions for John Henderson here. I'm going to go ahead and start off with one question first, just to break the ice. This is coming from YouTube, particularly Alan. He has two questions. We'll do one now and one a little bit
former
later.
speaker, Alan Uthoff, yes.
What?
He was a speaker last year, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He's
Well,
done
thank
this before. Yep.
Question from Alan. With the history of past IGDA chapter, what do you think is needed first to restart the chapter?
Honestly, I wouldn't. Well, I'll give credit for IGDA having at least 3 new board members who are actually really interesting. I always forget the. What is he? Finnish? The one who's on the board for Global Game Jam? Really long hyphenated name. I don't know. Anyway, but Jug Blomberg and Rami Ismail on the IGDA board, as well as the new executive director who Tyler has met and done karaoke with, but I haven't met the man. But that's interesting. But IGDA, as the former executive director Kate Edwards put it, like the ESA, it's another organization that was formed in the 90s under completely different pretenses and a different environment. And so its whole reason for being, it needs to rediscover it on the regular basis. And honestly, it was, I'll tell you what happened. I mean, I was involved with it and I liked it when I got to do the things I wanted to do and help out the way I wanted to help out. But it got to the point where it just became a situation where other people would show up and I would be expected to give them work. And that isn't fun. I mean, I'll be someone's boss if you pay me, but you know, if I don't, again, I made that in my list. I don't like working with people I don't know. And that happened one too many times. So, but I think what Alan's really getting at is like the structure, like having something that people can point to and say, look at that. You know, what if there's actually an email account or like a customer service for people that are interested in game development, or like a chamber of commerce even. There would need to be money, really. There need to be a budget for it. I'd want there to be something that, you know, with a board of people that were genuinely interested on the regular, people that represented local studios that actually employed people, and those people would have to be active in it in a way that they hadn't been before. It needed to actually be interwoven into everything else that was going on, and that was one thing that the old IGDA chapter just never really was. We just kind of did things and people showed up. And again, I can do that. You know, I get enough people to help me out. I can make certain things happen. Won't make any money because I don't have a budget for this. I mean, I do have a budget because Gordon pays for the beer and pizza, and you spend his money. That was your job this time. And I'm glad for that. But not every studio heads has the same attitude as Gordon Walton. You know, not everyone, if Gordon was here, I've heard him say it multiple times, so I'll just drop it, what he'd say, is that he would like there to be more opportunities for game developers to meet each other than the terminal at Austin Airport on the way to GDC or on the way back. Because if we don't actually do some work to bring people together for whatever reason, I mean, that's another thing about these events is that they have different purposes. Like this is a speaker show, but like beer night, the purpose of beer night is beer night. I'm not going to make anyone drink, but it's at a bar. So, you know, ideally, you know, pay your tab and don't start a fight. But then there ought to be other ways to bring people together. Like what if we actually had a way for all the independent developers that, you know, not all of which are doing stuff for commercial purposes. What if we actually knew where those people were and where they were at on their projects? It's hard to keep track of them. But if they had something to look forward to, like a local showcase, then we would know, you know, so-and-so is working on this. You know, is he going to be ready for the showcase? Yeah, maybe, don't know. Those are the kinds of things that I would like to see as a structure. And whether we put the IGDA logo on it or not, it really hardly matters. But, I mean, I hope that, well, and part of the thing I was hoping that other people will listen to what I had said and be like, wow, yeah, that's really not the case, and wouldn't it be nice if this was better? So hopefully that's good enough for Alan.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the audience out here?
Oh, God, a comment. I reserve the right to disagree with you.
Can you turn the mic off from there remotely? Cut me off. No, I don't mean to make this more depressing, but you're actually missing 4 more events from your What's Gone list. Well, Coffee Co-working's gone, but the original organizer just moved back to town, so maybe that's going to come back. VR Austin kind of had to die off because of COVID. I don't know if it's coming back. VR Austin? There used to be a Unity developers group, Unity meetup. There used to be an Unreal meetup. And so this is all leading to something, to an actual question and kind of a point for everyone.
Oh,
is,
good. You do have a question also.
yeah, you don't need to have some global, like, this is the Austin game dev meetup. People would meet for very small, specific things like Autodesk user group, right? Unity user group. So my question for John is, how do you, if you wanted to start a group, a sub-specific group like that, or a niche group, how do you get the word out and find people and get everyone together? How do you actually find enough people to connect together and a space to then start having that event?
I mean, these are all the questions. Every time I wanted to do something, I wonder about it now. The good news is ATX Game Makers now has a calendar. If you go to atxgamemakers.com, anything that gets planned will eventually end up on there. But ideally, you should be able to let people know that you want to do this and where you think you might want to get it. As far as finding a venue, gosh, who likes coming downtown? I don't. Well, really, starting a venue, you need to have a when and where to have any kind of event. You really do. Don't start planning on anything until you can address those two things, and be more flexible about the time. But once you announce it, you really don't want to change it too much. I mean, I hate doing that. I had to do it once. Actually, I had to do it twice for this event. Hence why I didn't want to reschedule it after I found about the conflict. I mean, I will talk to anyone about it. Again, I'm not wanting to create more work for myself, but I've let people know when they've found they've been in a jam for something. Like Games Y'all realized that they couldn't really have an event at their space that doesn't have AC during the summer months. So I don't even know which one of us suggested Fourth Tap, but that's been an available space. There are a lot of large bars with available event space at them, but there's been some, you do have to wonder who's in charge of events. So just knowing who those people are, and just so long as they're coming in on an off night and there's an opportunity to sell food and drink to people who wouldn't come there otherwise, they're usually good for that. But other than the university campuses, which again, like the one you work at, UT Austin, if you're not a student or an employee, it's not convenient. And St. Edwards is great, but it's way out in South Congress, and the people that we had there for Portfolio Posse, most of their viewers had never been on campus before. It's also important to note that 80% of the game development in Austin is in and around the Arboretum area, the intersection of 183 and 360, otherwise known as 15 minutes from Richard Garriott's house. It's a historical moment. Like, that's Origin used to be out on 360, and so all the people that were there 30 years ago lived around that area. But increasingly, a lot more people live even further north and out into the suburbs. And again, it's not getting any easier to get around. Not everyone wants to take the bus, but not everyone has access to a car either. I remember when VR Austin started, the organizers were spending like 5 figures reserving spaces, and I mean, they would get sponsorship from like HTC or Valve, but that's great when you can focus on that as part of your business. But I suppose I also do things, like I said, with my list of reasons to do anything. I don't like spending money, and I don't like money being involved, because then I have to account for it, and that sucks. And then I have to, I start wool gathering about how I'm not getting paid to do this. I suppose if there were anyone that saw a specialty event that wasn't being addressed, I would want to talk to that person. You know, I'd hope that person was getting something out of this talk or some other talk, because I like to think these are pretty open-ended, but there are probably some people that want some more specific information that aren't getting it. That's probably not the best answer to it, but I don't got a lot more than that. Maybe you're thinking about it now.
All right, thank you. Before we get to the next question, because I have forgotten to say it, parking here is expensive unless you get the voucher. So, we have a demonstration.
Yes, these things.
So just right out here to the right, you can get a voucher from Vanessa.
Yes.
And you want to make sure to do that. It'll basically your parking ticket will be $7 instead of whatever crazy amount it would be otherwise. So
right,
that's a lot of money.
It can rack up, and you have to leave by 10 o'clock. I didn't actually realize that until today. So don't lollygag.
Yep. So voucher, leave by 10 o'clock, or pay lots of money. All right. Who has the next question?
Emily.
Hi. So you pride yourself on being the person who connects people to other people, or have in the past. So my question is to you: who was your John Henderson?
Oh, it was probably Jennifer Bullard, another Amy Goldenberg, who she had a kid, so that became her main job. But Jennifer has been everyone's big sister. She at one point was the chapter president for IGD Austin. She also ran Captivate Conference for 2 years, and I was her assistant on the second year. She took an enormous bath on a lot of people thought that they could just roll up a big conference out of nothing, and we got 1,000 people, and that were a lot fewer people than we're expecting. But and that taught me a whole lot about trying to do things with a budget and having expectations. And again, why I don't like spending money if I have to lose it, because I don't have any to lose. But Jennifer is now working at Intific or Cubic Austin. She used to be in the game industry for a long time. She had started out as a designer. She worked on games like Heroes of Might and Magic 3 and 4 way back in the day. But now she's working on user experience projects for civic and government military contracts. I'm going to get to see her this weekend. She's having a birthday very soon. So actually, happy birthday, Jennifer.
All righty, and I believe I saw your hand raised.
Yes, it was me. I have 2 questions. Is it cool if I ask 2 questions?
Yes, it's cool.
Okay, the first question is...
They better be good.
Can't promise that. But the first question was, could you explain what you meant by incubation? I wasn't quite...
Well, incubation just means onboarding people with less than ideal experience to either prepare them for a job or bring them into the work environment and give them the skills such that you're actually trying to take someone off the street and turn them into a viable employee. You might otherwise call it an internship or an apprenticeship, but they're just things that don't happen often enough in the game industry as a whole. But well-heeled companies like Bungie and Blizzard and Riot and other companies are, they're some of them, like Bungie has, again, that whole section of their website, their whole careers web page, where they talk about it, so you can find out what they think it means on there.
And then the second question is, you told us to ask in the Q&A, what are the obnoxious politics you were talking about?
Oh, boy. Well, the power grid was one of them, and how we all basically have been living with a sort of Damocles over our heads for the past year and a half since that happened, and now we're spending even more on the power grid, and it's not even clear what's going to come of that. Anything that is making people feel less than human or less than regarded for reasons that don't have anything to do with making people feel safer or more inclusive. Let's not put too fine a point on it, but there are a lot of queer people in game development, and there always have been. In particular, the T in the LGBTQ. There have been T's in game development before we even had, what is now considered a nice way to refer to them. The person who invented multiplayer networked computer gaming was a trans woman. And if people don't know that about game development, you will get used to it. I mean, I can't lay my hands on it, but there was like an analysis about like a high instance of transgenderism in game development. There just have always been. It kind of, I don't, please don't take this the wrong way, but it kind of lends itself to what I said about game development being a craft born of dissatisfaction and dysphoria. I'm not going to reduce it as just merely dissatisfaction, but it's being dissatisfied with the own skin you're living in. So just be aware of those things. And if there's anything that's made to threaten people like that, you're attacking the game industry. And as we've established, there aren't enough people to go around to do all those jobs. So it's not doing anything good for game development in Austin to attack queer people, because a lot of them are game devs.
Okay, we'll come back to you. We're going to do one more from YouTube, once again from
And
Alan.
I know not everyone considers the word queer to be a nice word in every context, but I meant it in the nice way.
Alan has a question. As game developers, what can we do to help get studios more involved in attending and planning local game dev events?
Well, ask them and hopefully get some answers from them. I mean, they first have to care. And I'm not at all sure all the time how much they care. I would love to be proven wrong that they don't seem to. Again, just running a studio is a lot. You know, just trying to get some project out that's interactive software development related, that's hard. And again, just trying to find all the people to actually do the work and managing throughout the whole project and including the money. Just being able to focus on that is probably enough for most people. But I'd like to think that most of them are here for a reason. So if a conversation started about why you're here as opposed to somewhere else, you know, there are some studios, I mean, all roads are leading to Austin. You know, people keep starting new studios here all the time. And I sometimes wonder about it, because usually when you do that, it's because you believe there's a local, you know, pool of talent. And there is, but they all have jobs. So does that mean you're just going to poach them all? Gosh, I hope not. But I mean, hopefully that's kind of why I focused so much about talent and about available, you know, people that are needed to hire everything. You know, you can't just put out a really long list of open positions and just expect them to be filled. I mean, people will apply for them, but here's another thing that I don't think gets said nearly enough. You talk to any recruiter, they'll point out that a glamour industry can be defined as that every job listing that's ever put out there, effectively 2 orders of magnitude more people will apply for it. 100 people for every one job. And the recruiter will say their job is to go from 100 to 10 to 1. 100 applicants, 10 viable candidates, 1 actual hire. That could be made easier if there was a more stratified structure. And again, just having the events, what Tyler said is correct, and I agree with you on that, but there needs to be more of a way to find out real things about Austin that are not assumed. And I don't want that to be anyone's studio's job. I mean, they're going to do it anyway for their own sake, but they're not going to do it as well as someone who operates independently. Again, it'd be like a chamber of commerce if one wanted to, but again, how many game studios are members of the Austin Chamber of Commerce? Not many. So, and also there are other technology agencies in Austin that represent other companies. Most of them do not have game companies as members. So again, that's another indication in my mind that a lot of studios are very used to operating within bubbles. And probably in their mind, they understand that the process is imperfect, but they think they have total control over it. I would love to be wrong about this stuff. I don't want to sound too cynical, but that's observable. All right.
Questions?
So, for those of us who are the inexperienced game developers, and I don't want to speak for everyone else in the room.
Hold it more to your mouth.
Oh,
We can
can
hear
you guys not hear me? Is that better? I don't want to speak for everyone else in the room, but at least for myself, this is the first game event in Austin that I've gone to that I was like able to find, because I graduated college right as the pandemic was kicking off, right? And I had planned to get involved in all this stuff, and I had heard many stories before I moved here about how involved Austin was in the game community and how open it was to doing lots of things and there being lots of events. And like you said, I hadn't heard of most of the things that you showed up there, you know? So beyond going to the other ones that are still open that you mentioned, what can you recommend for someone like me who, you know, hasn't been in the industry, so I can't try to build or, you know, start the building of any of the things that you're talking about, you know, or you know, just help out. You know, what else can I do as someone who doesn't really have a foot in the door?
Well, don't discount just showing up. Because first of all, welcome to this. I hope you had a good time. At least you seem to be engaged enough to have something to say. So thank you for that. Where did you go to school? Okay, so you're right here in town. Were you a member of EGADS? Yeah, I think EGADS is open if you really wanted to. Yeah. Yeah, because actually, we want to know who the hell that was, because that guy told you lies. It's, yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, EGADS, I'll give them a shout out. They are pound for pound, dollar for dollar, the best resource for new talent in Austin. But again, it's new talent, so unless you get a little more hustle than typical, it's not any better than anywhere else. But at least they'll have events. They have dev events. They'll bring in speakers. They actually do their own conference at the Gates Dell Complex GDC called GDC Squared. But again, you're not a UT student anymore, so unfortunately about that. But they are very good for that, and they're a student club. They're doing things that, like bridging the whole game development program is bridging between two different schools on literally on either side of campus. Now the design school's involved and NCS, so they do a better job of connecting those things than the university programs do. But I would just encourage you to find out as much as possible. If I had a whiteboard, I'd be writing it all up here, but there's the ATX Game Dev calendar. I update that on the weekends on Twitter and Facebook. But now there's the atxgamemakers.com calendar, which has things that far into the future. Just make yourself available and get people used to you. Here's another one. I use this all the time, and I know this is somewhat ableist because not everyone has full use of both hands, but not everyone has seen this, so I'm going to do this. You need to have something in both hands. This hand has everything you know how to do and can demonstrate. This is who knows you. This is hard for shy people, but the world doesn't care. Find a way to cope. Because if you don't have something here, what you have here better be 24-karat platinum. And at this point in your career, it's probably not. You need time to fail and learn from it, and you need to be brave enough to do that failure. Tyler mentioned the Global Game Jam. That's another good one. We've been doing it 5 years consistently, and 2 just on Discord because it hasn't been sanitary to be in person. But that regular events will continue to happen, and we'll just, if you go to the ATX Game Makers calendar, you'll find as much as possible. Whatever you feel comfortable doing, and if you're slightly awkward or shy, treat it like practice. No one got good at anything without practice. You will improve just by doing. And people will get used to you, and they will get to know you, and that will be as important as anything you can do. And if you decide you like being in Austin, then opportunities to contribute will come about. I don't know when it'll happen, but believe it. What was your name? I can't read it. Gray. All right. How did you find out about this?
I found it on Meetup.
Meetup. Well, Meetup costs money if you if you're organizing events. So thankfully, again, other things I do appreciate Gordon for paying for stuff. So other things I use social media that doesn't cost money. I'm cheap. Was on Meetup. I mean, I don't discount it because I've heard that many times, and they really do have good region-based. You know, just put in where you are and maybe a few keywords, and you can find stuff. So. But I also get, this is also Capital Factory, so I also get a lot of Capital Factory people sometimes. And I don't mean that to denigrate, because I genuinely believe there are a lot of people that would probably benefit from knowing anything real about game development, even if they're not game developers or have any interest in it. So I'm glad to have those people too. All right.
Alrighty, thanks. Doing another reminder, I'm going to keep doing it. Don't forget to get your vouchers on your way out. Any questions?
All right, so John, sorry, this question is not necessarily for. I had a question about EGADS.
Okay.
Is it open to ACC attendees? I didn't want to say students.
I don't think they care if people just show up on campus, but they also have a Discord that you can just come to too. Yeah. You got someone who's been updating it last week, so. Right. Yep. Yep. Most of the events that are filmed get streamed to the Discord. So, but EGADS, EGADS, it's actually more, it's a student club that's been around for more than 20 years. Like it was founded in 99, 2000. So it's a legit student club that, here's another thing I've said to local recruiters to shame them, is that the officers, for a while, they were getting hired right out of school at like Niantic and Riot, and neither of those have offices here in Austin. So it's like they're good enough for Riot, but you won't hire them. What the hell's wrong with you? So.
Thank you.
I don't know if they actually felt shame. I just intended them to feel it.
All right, you remember?
I do remember a question. So we've heard a bunch of negatives which are steeped in realism, and it's good for us to hear them.
I excel in blunt.
Yeah. So, what are reasons for people to continue trying to build a career in games, and also why continue to be in this city versus going somewhere else? Because it sounds like you still want them to be in Austin, you still want them to be in video games. So what would convince them to stay?
I mean, I just don't want it to be inertia. I don't want it to be that they're already here, so they're just going to be here for whatever. It needs to be more than that. I think classically, you know, there once upon a time, you could really come in off the street and get a job at like Origin or Acclaim, but that's ancient history now. It's not like that anymore. If you actually show up at the door of some game studio without an appointment, don't do that. Yeah, they will they will escort you out. They'll say, "No, sorry." That you'll get if they find out your name, you'll be blacklisted and not be allowed back. But there's still college professors that tell, or like moms and dads that come from a different generation where that was actually okay. Yeah, don't do that. But I think Austin, unlike a lot of other places that have like this intersection of creative and technology, you actually will get treated like a person here. Or at least there are lots of places where you'll just be silently judged for whether or not you're worth anyone's time. You know, it's like, talk to the hand. You know, there are places like that. I don't think Austin is altogether like that. That may be changing in certain ways, but generally speaking, I've found, and I've been here 15 years, just about, yeah, I'll be 20, next year will be 15 years, that most of the people here will at least be patient enough. Like, it's not like everyone you meet is going to necessarily be helpful to you, but it's like every episode of Law and Order where they meet someone and they lead them to that next one and then the next one. Everyone you meet is not going to be the one that can necessarily help you, but again, they'll treat you like a person. Well, not everyone's a cop either, but yeah. I hope that answers you. I also just, I want it to be about the people, because enough people that I know that are still around, I want them, for their sake, to enjoy it. But like I said, people come here anyway. Why do people want to get into game development? I don't know. It sounds cool at the time, maybe. Maybe they've, always had a dream and they've not quite excised that inner child, that continues to know how to dream and make things possible. Maybe, again, they've grown up dissatisfied with the world they live in and just really want to make something else that they can immerse themselves in and have total control over it, that actually seems fun and engaging in ways that the real world that we don't have a reset button on isn't. We're not going to run out of people like that, but a lot of them aren't going to get their first shot. A lot of people are going to get passed over, and they're not going to find a mentor. They're not going to get encouraged. That's a problem. I don't want to see people like that just fritter away. I want people to have a chance to feel like, them having a dream might actually matter, or them having an ability might actually matter. There are plenty of people, and again, this is part of a lot of factors, including how we expected colleges and universities to solve so many problems that they're just not classically equipped to handle. But they do it imperfectly. Instructors do the best they can with what they have, but like I said, the industry keeps changing day to day. You can imagine, there's still some computer science programs that are, introduce Java. How about Python? How about Ruby? Something that people use. How about HTML5? But they've got a tenured prof who only knows Java, so that's what they teach them. What if, some local company that really needed technical artists for, their mobile games, and they've got a whole bunch of pre-made animations that they just need someone who knows Unity well enough to be able to implement all the animations that someone else make. That's a job. Again, I think I said that in my talk. Like, what if there was a way for those needs of employers to reach out to an existing institution and just do it? I mean, if Facebook can reach out to ACC and create a digital marketing program, is anyone else trying to do that now? Anyway, I think I got off your subject, but is that what you're asking? All right. So long as I stay interesting, I suppose,
Alrighty, any other questions?
This is the first Mike's Hard Lemonade I've ever had.
Congratulations.
It's okay. I'll finish it. Okay. Yeah, this is the black cherry. It's all sody pop. Yeah, I mean. I'm an old man, I know. How about YouTube?
Alan is saying, John,
Good old Alan.
Don't forget about the ATX Game Makers Discord.
Yes, they have a Discord too. So ATX Game Makers, if you go to the atxgamemakers.com, they have a Discord link along with the calendar. So very good. And also, so does Fantastic Arcade, makers of Games Y'all. They have a Discord as well. So there's a lot of Discords. Lots of people are using Discords now because it's free and it actually is pretty robust. Can be made better by bots. So, yeah. I mean, we used to have IRC back in the day. It kind of is like that too, but, it has emojis and stuff. Go ahead.
Any other questions for John over here?
Well, did I sound like I was just complaining to complain? Okay. Well, yeah, I'm pretty good at complaining, I suppose, but this was just stuff that had been rattling around in my head. I just don't see people talking about it. Like, did it resonate at all? Like I was talking about how there just aren't enough experienced game developers alive. I can't prove that. I don't think anyone can. But I just see so many studios, like when they'll start off, you know, they'll announce their project, and there's like, oh, by the way, we need umpteen million people. We have no idea where they're going to come from. And I feel bad for the people whose job it is to find all those people, and I hope that they're well budgeted enough. But I don't. And the part about poaching, I mean, if not every situation is the same. If you've got a situation where you got people who are, you know, maybe the top management is not up to snuff, but the team has a little bit more loyalty to that one lead, that can be a way for that team to stay together and just work on something else. I mean, it's no good for the people that they're leaving, but you know, maybe that they can keep a job that way and work with someone else. Because that is the big tragedy every time there's a layoff or a studio closure, is you lose the team. All those people, the chances of them all working together like that again just vanish to nothing. And all the reasons why people want to live in Austin, there are lots of reasons still. It's just, it's more expensive now, and a lot of weird things are happening that not everyone likes. And I don't want it to just be reduced to a bunch of complaints, though. I was hoping that it was going to be, you know, light fires under asses and get people to care about this stuff again in ways that might actually lead to a demand. Like, what I would like to see, more studios that would actually announce to their employees, hey, there are these events going on. We would like to encourage you to go out. Now, one reason they might not do that is they're afraid about them finding out about their other employers in town. Classically, that had been a concern about one of the guys that started Beer Night. That's part of the reason why he made the rule about no recruiting. And I uphold that. I don't want it to become a meat market. And it definitely could be like that if anyone's hiring. You know, they could just send an agent out there to, you know, step on up, we'll hire you. It's not good for the environment if people can't trust each other. But I think also game developers, they don't tend to be very social people. Yes, that includes some of the people in this room. I'm not saying that as a judgment or like I expect anyone to change utterly, but y'all could be better about it. You could improve, and there ought to be opportunities to do that. You ought to care about where you live and other people who do what you do that you don't work with some other time other than when you just got laid out and your chips are down and you're wondering what you're going to do next. You ought to have people, you know, in your corner, in your Rolodex, wow, I'm dating myself with that one, in your contact list that you know and can vouch for you. And the best time to do that is when you're not desperate. But it won't happen unless there are people who are organizing events or people on Discord. Yeah. Look at AJ being... That's right.
Gotta pinch and zoom, pinch and zoom.
Yep.
That's a.
We'll just see if it will work. Yeah, there's a lot of lights that are reflecting on it, and it's probably not going to work that well.
The limits of technology.
As to who I am, it's a bit hot out. I wish it wasn't like that.
Oh, did it work?
Her face is not... Oh.
All right.
Oh, and the picture I'm using here, that was actually from my friend Marcelina Campa. Took that picture. And I think that's on North Lamar. But yeah, maintain the illusion of Austin is what it says on the screen face, and also gun control now.
All right. Any other questions for John? All right.
Richie. I mean, not to sound too esoteric, but the big underline is people are coming here anyway. I want them to have something, some touch point. And I want Austin to be more than just a place where people go to work. I mean, that's not a problem by itself, but again, it ought not just be, 'cause I do genuinely have a problem, and this is where I get judgmental. I do genuinely have a problem with game developers who expect their job to give them everything they want. And a lot of them seem to want that. They think that that's legitimate. You ought not expect your job, the thing that makes you money, to give you everything you need in life. You need to find a balance between the thing that makes you money and the thing that makes you happy. They can overlap, but it's not all going to be the same thing. And if you can figure out a way to do that, then you're actually doing better than half the planet, because I don't think most people get that right. I think there ought to be more non-specific resources that are not based on any one studio. I don't think it's a bad thing that studios want to take care of their own people. That should continue to happen. But when we had things like the summer picnic, you know, not everyone wanted to come out. For one thing, it was really hot, and if we did it this year, it'd be really fucking hot. But it was something special. And if we had a game conference that wasn't necessarily profit-based, people would come in to Austin and, you know, be able to connect to people here, and it would feel like, you know, part of a continuum, like there are people in other places that would come here. South by Southwest is really good at bringing people in from outside of Austin to come to Austin, but I would argue it's not nearly as good at showcasing stuff that's already made here by people who are already here. So I don't think we necessarily can rely on them as much as something else. But what I think I was emphasizing in my talk is that I don't think any of that stuff makes money. So it wouldn't be a commercial enterprise, unfortunately. And I would even so far as to discourage anyone who wants to do it for the expectation of making money. But again, I've been around long enough to see what good can come, even if it's just incidental, of giving people reasons to appreciate where you are as opposed to being somewhere else. I have conversations with you. You've lived other places. You came back here for reasons. I want there to be more reasons, because you could go again. Again, nowadays, it just, even with work for home and just working, we've done it for 2 years. And here's another thing I was going to talk about, but, you know, the whole gambit of returning to office. I mean, I don't think we rightly know what we've given up by not having people work out of an office all the time like we used to, and now it's just not sanitary to do so. But and one of those things that I did talk about was on-ramping and how game companies were never good at it. And now those people that have just started off, you know, in the past 2 years during a pandemic, I know people that have come here. I think you were one of them. You know, this dude comes to Austin for his first job during the pandemic, you know, and a year into his job, half the company gets sold off and the other half gets rebranded. I mean, if there are lots of people that are in your situation who didn't find any event or haven't chosen to come to anything. And I wonder what their mentality is. You know, I don't want to make it my business, but I want to at least suggest, hey, there are other people like you that you don't know here in Austin. You know, the fact that you're here ought to matter. You ought to be glad that you're here. Again, it seems really artificial, but I think we ought to hold to that, because otherwise the default will just be, yeah, I'm in Austin, and you decide you're going to go somewhere else. Nah. Yep. Sure. Potentially. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would argue that that came about the whole, keep Austin weird. That came about as an ad hoc effort to keep a Walmart out of downtown, and then it was adopted by the Chamber of Commerce. So the Chamber of Commerce, once upon a time in Austin, was really focused on trying to increase the amount of technology industry, and they worked really hard to wheel and deal and get IBM and Texas Instruments back in the day in the 60s and 70s. Now we got loads of it, and people coming in no matter what. So, it's not like we need more people, but like I said, they keep coming. I see people that show up at beer night, and I'm glad to meet them and talk to them about it, but I wish that I could reach them before they get here, not to keep them away, but to inform them usefully about what's in store for them. Because now I don't think we can afford it to do it any other way. Because for the sake of building and maintaining a talent base, it's either going to be something that any people involved take control over, or it's going to get done to us. I'm not saying that we all need to come together and necessarily solve the problems, because again, I've not seen that happen, and I've been around a long time. But those are conversations that we had during the IGDA days. We had those conversations at South by Southwest and Captivate and the Austin Game Conference. Solutions are hard to come by, and the reasons why are probably going to change over time. But I don't think Austin has been a monolith for a long time. I think it changed fundamentally about every 4 years, which is an improvement. Well, it's not an improvement. It's a change like it used to be when I came here. It changed basically every 7 years. And now it's more than any one person can keep track of, which in my mind means it's better to have some kind of anchor. I don't know if I'm the only one who thinks about it this way. I hope that's not completely anathema to what you were asking, but that's generally where I'm coming from with all this. I don't know what form any of this will take, if any at all, but I think the needs are greater than any one hobbyist's desire to do anything about it. And I hope I don't sound ungrateful when I say that, because it is fun. Maybe I haven't explained how much fun this is. I mean, it is. If you could get to do it, I think Gray thinks it must be fun because he was asking about it. If there was a way to do it, again, with the IGDA chapter, there ought to be something where, if there was something like the picnic, I could at least give you a job parking the cars. Seriously, it took that many people to do it.
Yes. All right, so we are about 8 something minutes over 9 o'clock. And so I would just like to thank Gordon for the food, purchasing the drinks. I'd like to thank Capital Factory. Richard, thank you so much. And then everybody, let's give a hand to both John and Richard. Thank you guys so much for coming out.
Raymond Stump, everyone.
Yeah. And please take some pizza home. If you want to take some drinks home, hit me up. We'll just let you guys take some. And then don't forget your vouchers. Otherwise, it'll be expensive. $3.80 per 20 minutes or something like that. Do the math. That's a lot. Thank you guys so much.
Good night.